Welcome to this Nordic side event on data for forest and farming, building from below, and this is organized by Food and Forest Development Finland. My name is Tina Hovio, and I work as a program director for FFD, and I also lead climate action for AgriGold Alliance, of which FFD is a member. FFD has prepared this event together with our partners, with AgriGold Alliance and Forest and Farm Facility Program. In addition, today in the panel, we have Eastern African Farmer Federation, we have International Family Forestry Alliance, and we have a Danish Agriculture and Food Council and Food and Forest Development Finland. What we want to discuss today is how we can enhance inclusion through innovative solutions, dealing with data, which is so much needed when you deal with climate action. We want the actions to be result-based, and therefore we have to be able to measure and quantify the actions that we are taking. This is often a challenge when you're dealing with the smallholders. Their plots are small, they can be very remote, so in order to measure things become easily very pricey. On the other hand, when we calculate the number of people who are depending on smallholder forestry and farming, we talk about 1/4 of the world's population, 1.5 billion people. So it's very important to have them on. We also know that still today, about 2.3 billion people use wood or charcoal for cooking every day. So we talk about a huge number of people that we need to reach out in order to make climate action real. What we want to do is to try to create innovations and digital tools, other innovative tools for the smallholders so that they could become climate actors themselves. And this is the key topic of today. I'm very convinced that all those people are already eager to act. I've been in the field, everybody is concerned about the climate changing, they are already eager to act. Let's give them tools that are needed for them to take part of it. In the panel, we have good examples of practical experience working with the smallholders and their organizations, and I think that we are going to have a very interesting discussions. We are going to engage you as well through Mentimeter, and you could already go to menti.com, where you can find questions, where you go to the site, either here or if you are participating through streaming, you go and you hit there the number 50235309. But before starting the panel and starting the Menti questions, I would like to invite you to watch a video that sets the tune for the whole event and explains a bit what we have been doing, all the parties involved. Could we have the video, please?
Nhiều nông dân ở Việt Nam hiện nay thường có các cái lô rừng nhỏ, nhưng là họ có rất nhiều kinh nghiệm trong nông nghiệp hơn là lâm nghiệp. Họ cần được sự hỗ trợ và tập huấn về quản lý rừng bền vững. Đồng thời cần có cái cơ sở dữ liệu về lâm nghiệp cũng là rất là quan trọng. Nó có thể giúp cho người dân lựa chọn cái phương pháp thực hành lâm nghiệp tốt để mang lại cái thu nhập cao và bảo vệ môi trường sinh thái. Liên minh hợp tác xã Thừa Thiên Huế và FFD cũng đã giúp các hợp tác xã xây dựng các cái vườn ươm và thực hiện chính trị rừng. Hiện nay người dân có thể tiếp cận các cái nguồn cây giống lâm nghiệp có nguồn gốc rõ ràng Do đó họ có thể trồng và bán sản phẩm gỗ có chứng chỉ rừng. Nó chỉ ra rằng người dân đã quản lý rừng bền vững.
Tôi đã học được cách đo trữ lượng rừng của mình. Với sự trợ giúp của điện thoại di động, nó không có khó để thực hiện. Tôi cũng đã trồng rừng bằng các cây giống có chất lượng tốt nên chúng phát triển rất tốt và tôi có thể để lại rừng lâu hơn. Để có rừng gỗ lớn sẽ đem lại cho tôi thu nhập cao hơn và môi trường tốt hơn.
So my name is Stephen Mushiri. I work for the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation and I'm here to present the E-granary initiative. The E-granary initiative is built on a digital platform, and this digital platform, we use it as a federation to aggregate information about the farmers with the intention of linking them or making them attractive to other value chain actors along any given value chain. The information we generate from the farmer includes their names, the enterprise they are in, their age, their gender, their association, organization, and with this information we are able to get what we call or aggregate what we call input demand. So we're able to know how much seed they require for the season, fertilizer or pesticide, and with this information we're able then to engage off-takers, for example, and we're able to sign contractual agreements for supply. We're also able to attract banks, insurance companies, even logistic companies. So the whole intention then of the E-granary is to ensure that we are reducing the transaction costs that the farmers would actually undertake in case they were engaging with other value chain actors alone. That is one. Number two, we're able to use this information to negotiate for better terms of partnerships. For example, when we aggregate seed requirement or fertilizer requirement, we're able then to make bulk procurement and benefit from what we call a quantity discount. It also means that the farmers are able to access quality and certified inputs. So in case there's a challenge, we're able to make follow through or follow up. The third thing, we're able to benefit from services around insurance. Hence, farmers are able to plan better, mitigate climate change related risks, because some of the support we get is advisory on when to plant, so that then we don't have a challenge of insufficient rainfall. that information is able to help us decide on what kind of crops to plant, whether it's a short, early maturing crops or there's a long, late maturing crops. We are also able to use that to take out an insurance premium. And the insurance premium then is actually used to cover any losses that may have happened as a result of an event like a pest event, rainfall event, or
The Tree Growers Association of Nyandarua has been supported under the second phase of the Forest and Farm Facility Program since 2018. The association is made up of more than 3,000 smallholder farmers who have planted trees for timber, poles, and fuel wood in their farms. The FFF program interventions in the association included building their capacity to establish the value of trees on farms and enable members do collective marketing. In 2020, the association undertook a trees on farm census and developed a business plan that they are now implementing. At the moment, the association has a contract with one buyer of fuel wood and are in the process of negotiation for others.
So these were some examples of our work, and they were mainly focusing on Kenya and Vietnam. But now I would like to engage you as the audience. And we had this Mentimeter question, and now I would like to ask you to submit your answer. What do you think is the share of climate funding that reaches smallholders in developing countries? We're getting some answers. Okay. This is the gruesome reality. Even though we are talking about 25% of the world population, of all climate funding, based on the IFAD study that was published a year ago, only 1.7% of the climate funding reaches the smallholder farmers. And I think this is one of the critical issues that has been discussed in this COP, and I think it requires approaches, it requires different kind of tools in order to reach out for those people. I would like now to turn into our panelists, and we have first here Elizabeth Simadala, the past president of Pan-African Farmers Organization and the president of the Eastern African Farmers Federation. I would like to ask you, Elizabeth, tell a bit about your organization and why do you think that these kind of tools and innovations are important?
Yeah, thank you very much, Tina, for that introduction. So I'm the president of the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation. My name is Elizabeth Nsimadala. And I'm happy that you've just watched our Chief Executive Officer presenting the E-granary initiative. So why this initiative? As a farmer organization, we realized that most of the challenges that our farmers face are along the entire value chain, ranging from production, where farmers are not able to access certified seed, certified fertilizers, to the service sector, where farmers are not able to access services like insurance, like irrigation, like mechanization services, extension services. Then when it comes to the output sector, or the output part of the chain, access to markets, I think it has been really a very hindering challenges to our farmers. And all this has led to reduced incomes for our farmers because they are not certain of where to sell the produce, but also it has led to reduced food security. So now, as a federation, we felt like it was also very challenging to mobilize all these farmers physically. It needed a lot of resources to have them together. So with innovation, we felt like it was very key and important to have a virtual aggregation. As a federation, we represent over 20 million smallholder farmers. But now, how do you bring the 20 million smallholder farmers in the 10 countries together? It is very challenging. So innovation was the best option, and that's why we came up with the E-granary. I hope you all know granaries that are used to keep produce that you're not going to use at the moment. So we felt like an E-granary would work for us, and that's why we came up with this innovation that virtually aggregates all our membership. So it's a virtual aggregation, it's a virtual cooperative of our membership, to come together, to be able to address the challenges that they face along the entire value chain. With this aggregation, like explained by the CEO, we are able to aggregate their input demand, their service demand, and their output demand, or the market. We're able to profile them, and I'm going to give you some statistics. So we've already built a database of 250,000 of our membership. We only not build the database, but we go ahead to profile them on, let's say, the size of their land, the size of their families, the age group, and so forth, so that we can have disaggregated data. And we've realized that the average land holding is about 1.1 hectare. So you can imagine if every farmer was to grow produce on 1.1 hectare, it's not even enough to feed their own families. But once you aggregate this produce, then you're able to go with the lump sum total to an off-taker to be able to negotiate for a market. And out of this, we've been able to trade 228,000 metric tons of maize and soya. Our farmers have been able to access loans. We've had a total of 150,000 farmers accessing loans. We've had fertilizer percentage reducing by 70%. We've negotiated a reduction in seed loan by 25%, and also insurance by 5%. And we've had 250, close to 60,000 farmers accessing extension services by their mobile phone, because we have over 85% mobile penetration in our communities.
Good, thank you.
And in total, the 1.1 acreage, in total of it, we have about 17,000 acreage that is under cultivation. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. These are, sobering figures, and it shows the magnitude that these kind of tools can bring to the reality of farmers. I would like to give the floor now to Lennart Axel, and I have here the slide that he could have on the background. Please, Lennart, tell about yourself, the organization you're representing, and why do you think these kind of tools are important?
Yeah, thank you, Tina. I work for I represent here the International Family Forestry Alliance, which is a global alliance of smallholder. In the UN language, they call us small forest holders. And we are represented in all the continents, and we are struggling and working together. Back home, I work for the Federation of Swedish Family Forest Owner, which is part of the Federation of Farmers in Sweden. And for us, it's indeed a very important thing to establish forest, and it's a fundamental element of the climate mitigation work. We started this week here in Glasgow with having a strong negotiations and discussions on deforestation, which is indeed a big problem, especially the illegal deforestation taking place in the world. But the other side of the coin is smallholders who get the right incentives for planting trees, which we can see through these land tenure policies and things. And that kind of activities will mitigate the climate change in a very, very nice and fundamental way. And I think the digital tools will help us. I will come back to that later.
Thank you, Leonard. And then we have Niels Peter Nering from Danish Agriculture and Food Council. Please tell about yourself, the organization you work for, and why do you think that these kind of tools are needed?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the invitation to be here today. I'm Climate Director in the Danish Agriculture and Food Council in Denmark. And the Danish Agriculture and Food Council represents the farmers and also the food industry in Denmark. Agriculture and food in Denmark is the largest competence cluster, employing around 200,000 people. We export agricultural products, we export food and equipment worth about 20 billion annually. Why is this topic so important? We all can agree on that we are facing huge challenges. Challenges with the climate, with food production, with producing materials without using fossil products, and also activity in the rural areas all over the world. We know some of the solutions, but we know far all of them. And we know very, very little about the emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions from the agricultural production. And we know very, very little about the results of different solutions. What is the greenhouse gas effect when choosing another production pattern? In the nitrogen area in Denmark, we have been doing calculations and accounting for several decades. And in this way, we have had the focus on nitrogen on the farm level. So the farmers know precise what they lose of nitrogen on their farm. And this has resulted in a 50% decrease in the nitrogen over the last decades. So this has been very good for the economy on the farm, and it has been very good for the environment and also the emission of greenhouse gases. In the greenhouse gas area, we have to get a lot more data. And that's why this topic is very important. We have to get the data, and we got to get all the solutions on the table so the farmers can get the knowledge and they can act on their own farms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Niels Peter. I like it that you link the data, the knowledge on action, and the integration of farmers into the action. And I think this is one of the central ideas of this event. Now I would like to invite my colleague, Noora Simola, the climate and forest expert in FFD. Could you please elaborate a bit what FFD has been doing in this field, and why do you think this topic is so important?
Thank you, Tiina. So yes, my name is Noora Simola, and I'm climate and forestry expert in FFD. FFD was established by Finnish producer organizations, MTK and SLC, and other rural development organizations in Finland to collaborate with the producer organizations in Africa, Asia, Latin America. And this North-South exchange and peer work is really integral part of our work. And I'm here also to share our experiences in Vietnam, our work in Vietnam. And we are there working closely with AgriCord, which is a global alliance of like-minded organizations like FFD, and also in partnership with the Forest and Farm Facility. And we have also close collaboration, for example, with Simosol, which is a Finnish-originated data innovation company working in the field of forestry. And I think the photographs here show very nicely that what have we been doing over there in Finland. We've been working with the forest producers, smallholders, and their organization since 2016, thanks to EU, IFAD, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we have been able to initiate this really groundbreaking work. There has been loads of capacity building in forestry areas and smallholder forestry, and part of this work has been building the data management capacity of these forest producer organizations. And we are all in agreement that importance of forests for fighting climate change and also biodiversity loss. And like the world's forests are still, their carbon balance is still making them net emitter due to the deforestation trends, I must say that Vietnam is an exception. In Vietnam, in the past few decades, largely due to the smallholder forestry, Vietnam's carbon balance of the forests are actually going towards very big carbon sinks. And due to the land reformation done 2 years ago, smallholders are now managing 1 hectare plots, 2 hectare plots, really small forest plots, and creating new forests and managing these forests. And what is crucial in this, that okay, there is now many new forests. These smallholder farmers, they have initiated these forestry activities, but they are more familiar with rice farming. They not necessarily have the know-how of forest management activities. So this is not yet the happy end. We need sustainable forest management. And this is where data comes to play. So to be climate smart, you need to understand the impact of your forest management actions. And you can't do it without data. So how can you produce more with less inputs and emissions if you don't have an idea of the growth of the forest, you don't have idea how to access quality inputs, you don't know the efficiency of using the inputs, and you don't have idea of the sequestration and emissions potential of your forests. So this is really crucial why you need forest data. You need it for forest planning, for sustainable forest management. It's really one of the first key steps.
Good. Thank you, Nora. And I think what is interesting is that you really link the forests, the national contributions, because in very many countries the governments are already taking an action in the forest that they are owning. But if you take on board the numbers through smallholders, you can really make a difference, as is now happening in Vietnam. But I'd like to come back to these tools, because we know that there are lots of different kind of tools available. So I would like to understand, what do you think are the key features that are needed in order to tool become useful for smallholders? I don't know, Elizabeth, would you like to elaborate? What are the key features in E-granary? Why do you think that the farmers have accepted it and are using it?
Yeah, thank you, Tina. And maybe to start with, for any technology, you really need to build trust with your constituency. What has been the most challenging problem within our cooperatives and our associations is side selling. And side selling because most of our cooperatives maybe don't trust, most of our members don't trust the cooperative, either the leadership or maybe the records management within the cooperative and so forth. So these innovations come in to give trust to the membership, one, by having a database of the membership they're able to get real-time data when they deliver their produce. They're able to have that information captured in the system and they can access it. They're able to interact with the system using their mobile phones. And our system is not so complicated. It is done on the usual, these small mobile phones that every farmer has. So we use USSD, which is compatible to any mobile phone. So you need to also look at the user friendliness of the innovation, because we are dealing with a constituency that has limited knowledge, or they are semi-illiterate. So the system has to be understandable so that even with minimal digital literacy, the farmers or the members are able to understand the system and be able to interact with it. Then the members also have to see value in the innovation. Are they able to access, for example, agronomic services? Issues of extension are very challenging, and most of our farmers don't access extension services. But are they able to access e-extension, for example, from their farms? Are they able to receive information, for example, on weather on their farms? In case of any outbreak of a pest or disease, are they able to get that information immediately? And not only the information, but also the intervention. For example, if there is a new pesticide that has been, tested to be working, are they able to get that information on that pesticide and where they can access it? So again, when it comes to the return on the investment, looking at what farmers are putting in and what they are getting out in terms of the services, I think it is also very important when you're looking at an innovation. So it should be just simple, well understood, and it should be able to address the challenges that most of our farmers face. And overall, it should be acceptable. Thank you.
Very interesting points. So you mentioned, for example, transparency,
Yes.
appropriate technology so that it's understandable by the users, also that it goes to both directions. The farm organization provides information which is useful for the farmers, kind of like balancing the information they share with the farm organization. This is very interesting. Leonard, I'd like to now come back to you. What do you see as the key features for this kind of a solutions?
Well, I mean, the digitalization provides an extraordinarily strong opportunity for the two-way data flux. Data coming down to me, down to the farmer. I can collect, I can see, I can know the prices beyond my local market and things like that. But important as well is that data from what I'm doing, I can provide to be aggregated at some levels. We have the yearly presentation of the state of the world forest, and smallholders' activities are hardly mentioned there because the lack of data is the reason, as FAO are putting it, and that's true. It's true. But if we would have a satellite network that provides the possibility for internet connection with a mobile phone, and if you can do this kind of simple solution things that will be applicable on the ground in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, and elsewhere, that would really help us to be able to mitigate the climate change with the planting of forest, as well as serving many of the other 17 sustainable development goals. So digitalization can actually provide an opportunity to really accurately recognize what smallholder farmers are doing by planting trees.
Thanks, Leonard. And this was a new dimension. With this kind of a tools also, the smallholders to become visible for the world and can be seen in the data, and I think that is another aspect which is very important. Niels Peter, how would you elaborate, and do you have some ideas why do you think, or what are the key features for good solutions?
Again, I will have a little bit focus on the climate area in relation to forestry and especially in relation to agriculture. as I mentioned in the introduction, there's a lack of data, there's a lack of knowledge. If you go out and ask the farmers, what are the emissions from your production? What's the emission of greenhouse gases from your specific production? None of them would know it, or very, very few would know it. What's the emission from 1 hectare of barley? What's the emission from 1 hectare of maize or wheat, etc.? What is the emissions on the clay? What's the emission on the soil types? And what is the emissions when you use manure and when you use fertilizer and the ways to apply it? There's a big, big difference in the emissions. We have to get knowledge in this area. First of all, I think we work with it in the developed countries, but this knowledge can be transferred to the developing countries. We are working with it at home. We are making up an accountant system where you on the farm can account how many emissions do you have of greenhouse gases. But that's not enough just to have the knowledge. You also have to know, within this knowledge, can I do something? Can I change the technology? Can I change the practices on my farm and in this way have a better economy and at the same time reduce the greenhouse gases? And when we will finish this system, I think it can be sold all over the world. In some of the developed countries, a very sophisticated model, and we can also change it and get it more simple so it can be used in countries where you don't have all this technology. Thank you.
Thanks, Nils Peter. And I like when you put the economy at the same level with the climate action, because very many farmers are already struggling economically. They know and they're willing to do climate action, but they also want to get their income. So we're always saying that nature positive, climate positive, income positive would be a good combination. Nora, do you have some new ideas you would like to bring into the discussion? Like what kind of features does a good solution have?
Well, I thank you, Tina. I think that the other panelists have brought up already that the data is really empowering, and it gives you power to do good decision also in forest management, if it is inclusive, accessible and understandable. And this already comes down in the forest management for forest data collection. We have understood that, like I'm also a forest producer, I'm a smallholder in Finland. And I really need to know my forest stock, and I really need to have simple ways of collecting data and recording it and get some sort of feedback analysis that I can plan my forest management actions. And this is exactly what we are doing in Vietnam as well. We have made forest inventories very simple. Farmers that have mobile phones, they are collecting this kind of forest inventory data with very similar measures than also in Finland. It really requires a measuring tape and a stick. You can get the diameters, you can get the heights. You can introduce them to your own mobile phone account. It also works offline. This is something we have developed together with Simosol. After that, the data is automatically processed and develops a report that shows you that if you manage your forest this way, if you, for example, lock your forest, these are fast-growing forests, already after 5 years, what kind of, average carbon stocks you will have in your forest, and what kind of prices you will get. And why we are showing this, these are like really in a simple and visual way showed in the mobile phone solution, is that we of course want to give them opportunities to have informed decision to increase the benefits, both in terms of economic benefits and climate benefits. So also this solution shows you that if you, for example, prolong your forest rotations, you keep your forests longer, your money will go up and your carbon stocks will go up.
Thank you, Nora. And I think this is also very important, both in the field of agriculture, because then you see how your practices, and if you change your practices, will impact, but also, and I think in particular in forestry, where the rotation period is so much longer. In farming, it's about 1 year. You cultivate something, you harvest, you know how much you got, etc. In the forestry, it's more. Even in Finland, we talk about a couple of decades, but even in the tropics, you talk about from 8 to 15 years in order to get a saw log, and for a smallholder to put your plots to trees and wait for 15 years. It's quite a long time. Now we have been talking about all these fantastic tools and ideas, but I know that they're not perfect. So I would like to hear from you now a bit, what kind of challenges you still face, and where do you think there's more work needed? Maybe we go the same round so that we engage now. Elizabeth, please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just to start with, maybe from the policy perspective, of course, innovations have been adopted lately, so different countries don't have really proper policy instruments that are guiding some of these innovations. So when it comes to rollout, we've realized that we have different country-specific contexts. And especially like us who are rolling such an innovation across different countries. So it's been a bit of a challenge. You realize that in one country, the process takes a shorter time, but in another country, it is really, it takes a longer time, because maybe the government, some of the governments are so protective because you're dealing with things to do with data and so forth. Then the other issue is on, of course, putting to scale these innovations, and also things to do with, the challenges that are related with the scaling of these innovations. Of course, an innovation is not static. It is something that you keep developing all the time because things keep changing. And then farmers have a lot of other problems to deal with. So when you come all the time doing this troubleshooting of these different new features that are coming, then it becomes a burden to the farmers. You have to continue doing a lot of digital literacy training, which of course is time consuming, but also requires a lot of resources, both financially and also technically. Then the other issue is that most of the institutions are going into this also without a proper strategy. You want to achieve this, but you don't have like a long-term strategy of where do you see this going. So I think as institutions also we need to prepare in advance, have like a proper digitization strategy that is going to drive this kind of agenda for a long period. Thank you.
Good, thanks Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So Leonard, your turn.
I mean, we live daily with problems with connectivity within the IFFA. When we have webinars, when we have various meetings or board meetings, etc., we daily have this problem with weak connections. And this requires evidently a policy things from donors and from programs and from activities on the support side that also give support to establish and to achieve the connectivity that could be used and could be stable, and that this is a question of financing, of course. But I would also like to raise another issue, why it's so important to have this connectivity. And besides the economic thing, which is obvious, and data coming and areas and kilos and things, for us, it's a social dimension. If you're a farmer in the Western Highlands of Kenya or in the slopes of Nepal or in the rainforest in Borneo, and you are connected with other forest producer organizations and how they're working and things, suddenly even though sometimes you are alone there out in the forest, you belong to a community which meets and can share, and you belong to the bigger family. We are a family forest association, but there is also a family connection by digital tools, which is a very, very nice thing to make you feel part of something bigger. And that is a very, very good thing that we also need to think about when we're talking about digitalization.
Thank you, Lennart, to take up the family values. They are important. Nils Peter.
Yes, let's reflect a little bit about the bottlenecks and the challenges. If we look at the bottlenecks, I think that I should mention two. First of all, the lack of data. The lack of knowledge about what emissions are there in fact when we grow our land. That's the first challenge. The second challenge, or the bottlenecks, sorry, that's the funding. We must help the farm society and the agriculture society to transfer in a more environmental and climate-friendly way of producing. And at the moment, only 50% of the global climate funding has been used and allocated for agriculture and forestry. And in fact, 1/3 of the emissions are coming from these sectors. If we then go to the challenges, we have to engage the farmers. It's a big, big challenge to engage the farmers in this very, very important issue. Not just coming up with new regulations, but engage them with incentives. And when I've been talking about this accounting system, we must come up with an accounting system which can help the farmer in getting a better economy, doing more for the environment, and doing more for the climate. And not giving a new tool to bring out new burdens to the farmers and to the forestry society, because that's not the way. We have to get engaged farmers, we have to be a part of the solution, and we want to be a part of the solution. Thank you.
That's nice. We want to be part of the solution. But as you said, farming and forestry, they are knowledge-heavy sectors. And if you want to do it climate smart, you need to study even more. So we have to make it easy also for the farmers to do these changes, have this transformation which is requested. Nora, would you like to elaborate? What do you think is needed there?
Well, firstly, sorry to be negative, I start with challenges, but you know, we have very practical challenges. Firstly, many of the data management solutions are not relevant for farmers. Farmers have not been farmers associations, cooperatives, so they haven't been part of designing these solutions. So this is one of the things, they had to be relevant to farmers for them, you know, smallholder producers, for them to be able to use them. This is how we can get loads of data, they have access to data, they can do good forest management decisions. Secondly, development of these solutions really requires resources. So we need finance towards supporting smallholders around the world, you know, developing these data management systems, sustain their forests, manage their forests sustainably. And I want to say this data is not the only building block in this picture. We need also forestry know-how, and of course we need land use policies, land rights, so on. There are many other enabling policies, so on, that you know are part of this picture, and this of course needs finance and support and technical advice, capacity building, so on. But then I would like to raise one more thing, because we all enjoy these great carbon sequestration benefits. For example, in Vietnam, what the smallholders have created in the past 2 decades and continuously do so. This is really, you know, crucial for our global mitigation efforts, and this is what we're hoping that everywhere around the world will happen in the coming decades. But at the same time, these smallholders don't have access to carbon markets. They don't get any benefits. These carbon market finances don't trickle down to them. So this is also one of the things that hinders this climate action. Why do farmers, even though they would have data, choose to log their trees after 4 or 5 years? They need cash. They are rural populations that fight poverty in many low-income countries. So what is really a structural issue is that how do we actually have right incentives to these farmers to do the climate smart decision? How could they get the compensation for the mitigation work they do for all of us? This is really a crucial question, and I think this is not only in Vietnam, this is around the world currently. And we need to create just and fair mechanisms to guarantee that these efforts are compensated.
Thank you, Nora. And that's why we were saying that title of this event could be also Data for Inclusion. We want the smallholders to be part of climate action. They should be remunerated based on the results. And I think that these kind of solutions could offer us opportunities, even though it's not easy. I see that we would have some possibilities of taking questions from the audience here present. I don't know if the organizers have a microphone we could use. I could take 2-3 questions from the people in the audience here in the Nordic Pavilion. I have there, could we have a microphone from somewhere?
There's a microphone.
Yes. There's a miss, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, the panelists. I am Harrison. I'm the executive director of an NGO based in Cameroon. And we work a lot with farmers, and we are developing a lot of data through community participatory mapping and land use planning. Like the lady from Finland talked about planning. And my organization and the government has developed tools for data collection with using national harmonized land use planning methodology, where we're doing that with the council. And now we are looking at the possibility of harnessing this data at both at community level that can be triangulated right up to national level. So my question here is, I don't know from the panelists if there are possibilities of developing these tools, because we are, one of the things we want to start doing now is enhancing agroforestry, that is integrating farming trees into farming systems. And in doing that, I really applaud the aspect of collecting data of tree measurements and the rest. So I want to find out if there are possibilities for any of the panelists to extend such data, data for forests and farming in my country, because I would gladly like to introduce this into our systems. Actually, 2 days ago, I was presenting with my minister here, and they are actually interesting also through WRI, who is doing national maps for Cameroon, to also have such data. So we are looking at this private public partnership synergy where data can be triangulated and equally shared at national level. So I don't know from the panelists, from all of you there, if such programs could be extended to Cameroon. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take some questions more. We have a gentleman here in the front.
Thank you, and thanks for the really interesting presentation as well. My name's Johnny. I'm from the Centre for Agriculture and Bioscience International. We're an intergovernmental organisation with 50 members. I think all of your member countries are members of us as well. We do a lot of work with digital tools for pest and disease management, and including a program called PlantWise, which works across 35 countries. One of the things we've managed to do very well now over the time is be good at being able to provide timely information to react to pest and disease risks, so that you can apply biopesticides or other types of control mechanisms so that we don't lose as many crops. What we've been more challenged with is longer term planning, particularly for climate adaptation and resilience building. So with digital tools you can send out alerts and messages, but it's much harder to do the more more involved sort of planning for adaptation and resilience. I was wondering whether any of the panelists had sort of insights and ideas of how we can do that better through digital tools and simple digital tools that all farmers can access. So that's kind of the first challenge. And the second is around the willingness to pay. So at the moment, most of the systems that are available, particularly in low-income countries, are provided free through grant support and otherwise. But these need to be sustainable over time, at least through some level of cost recovery. So are there any examples of how the digital systems that you've all talked about have started to improve the willingness to pay, start to generate some level of cost recovery as well? Thanks.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Let's take these two questions. So there were questions on if this kind of tools could be applied, for example, in Cameroon in agroforestry. There was a question on longer term planning and how the tools could be adapted to that, and then on cost recovery. I don't know, shall we take Nora? Would you like to reply on some of these?
Thank you for very good questions, and based on the experience of development of this tool with Simmersol and our Vietnamese partners, I know that it requires quite extensive studies, to be able to establish the models behind these tools. But it is definitely possible, for agroforestry systems, for any kind of land management systems, of course, it is possible. It just requires work and investment and collaboration with different actors, including, of course, the users, farmers themselves. Secondly, we have actually already considered putting in, for example, this our IPTIM mobile, an option for example, in case of Vietnam, sort of the typhoon-prone areas, and how you should sort of take that into consideration when doing forest management plans, what type of species and so on. You could ideally plant in that case, and unfortunately, we haven't got finance for it. We have tried to look for funding for it, but so far we haven't got it. And I think that we also would like to develop it to that direction and also apply in other countries. It's definitely very feasible. I think Elizabeth probably could agree with E-granary that it has loads of potential as well in those terms, in adaptation pathways. I wonder, would Elizabeth maybe like to...
Can I chip in?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Yeah, so let me start with the gentleman from Cameroon. Much as I've presented from the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, but we have a continental federation that brings together the different regional farmers organizations from Africa under that umbrella. And the idea of that umbrella is that we should learn from each other. And you're lucky that you're coming from Cameroon that hosts the Central Africa Regional Farmer Organization head office, ProPac. It is headquartered in Yaoundé, so you can reach out to them or reach out to PAFO Direct, and it's a welcome idea, and we would be ready to partner with you in case the best things that you can learn from us, but also we can learn from you. Then on the issue of the payment for the services, the willingness of the farmers to pay for the services. Yes, of course, as we start with these innovations, usually it is out of maybe a grant support. We are lucky that we've been supported by the World Bank under the Global Agriculture Food Security Program Missing Middle Initiative to pilot this E-granary initiative. But at the end of it all, at the end of next year, this whole program should be sustainable. But we are already seeing that when we started, it was very challenging even for the farmers to accept to pay for the services. But it so happened that in 2017, Kenya was badly hit by drought. So because of that drought, all the farmers who had taken up the insurance were able to be compensated. Even during this COVID, we have had cases where we've lost our farmers and the insurance companies have come in to compensate them. So because of that, farmers are now willing to pay for the service, but also for the financial service providers. You know, we've negotiated even for other services that are not really related to agriculture, things to do with like school fees loan, things to do with, other, let's say, house property loans and so forth. So farmers are seeing the importance of, bringing all these ecosystem players on board. And they're realizing that, when you negotiate as a team, then you're able to get better services at lower prices, interest rates, and premiums, and so forth.
I know that the conversation is just starting and we have about 1 minute. So maybe Leonard, just a couple of words, and Nils Peter.
Yeah.
But yes.
Thank you very much, and thank you. And to start with agroforestry, I mean, agroforestry has been developing for quite a few years, and E-craft in Kenya and all the experiences. And when I'm talking about small forest holders, all of them are also producing food. And then they have to manage their land. And evidently you're integrating trees in your land. You want the manure from the trees, you want to stop the erosion, you want water management, you want to stop the drying winds when the rain season starts, and all that, So it is very integrated. So I appreciate your efforts, and I hope that the science will bring even more and better results for you to be used. And I'm just saying on this pest management issue, I mean, here we're talking about climate. What we need information about is the weather. It is the weather about the pests, the insects, the flooding, the wind that we have to manage season by season. So that is also an element that is part of the data information. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think we ran out of the time, at least in streaming, but let's take a couple of few words from Nils Peter and Nora, and then we close.
Very brief reflection. A lot of countries, they have focused on their own reduction of greenhouse gases, their own reduction of environmental pressure. They don't think that their technology, etc., could be spread to other parts of the world. We have to have much more focus on this. We are inventing systems in Denmark. We are looking at Denmark. We should look much broader. How can we make systems which can be used all over the world? And then I just want to say, concluding remark, that you can change a lot from fossil energy to energy from solar plants or from windmills. You cannot electrify the cow or the agricultural fields. It is so complex, this area we're working with. We must find the solutions in collaboration between farmers and forestry and the society, and collaborate between member states all over the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Nils Peter. And then Nora, shortly the final words and we conclude.
I just would like to continue what Elizabeth was saying about the willingness of pay. I would like to take it to the other side. What is the willingness of paying, by the other actors of the society? These farmers, these smallholders, they produce climate benefits, but what is the willingness of paying, the other actors? And we have noticed that the transaction costs to integrate to the official carbon markets, even voluntary markets with certification, they are far too excessive, these costs for the smallholders. So for example, we have created systems where Finnish actors can directly compensate towards to these smallholder communities, this carbon sequestration they are doing, and we are verifying, with these mobile phone applications.
Thank
and then
you,
also
Nora.
externally. Thank you. But
I'm sorry, we have to conclude. I hope that we can continue the discussion with you later on.
Yes,
thank you
absolutely.
for the organizers. Sorry for having spoken a bit too much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.